Hey, welcome back to Jamieson's Repair Shop. Well, I've been working on the old parts car Thunderbird. You might have noticed I put up a short this morning. This is Sunday, October 2nd. The short was on this blade, fixing the end of the blade so it would go back in the chuck of the reciprocating saw, sawzall. A lot of people call them sawzalls. This is a Dewalt unit. Now, after I fixed the blade, I ran into another problem. I cut about 3 feet across the roof of that Thunderbird, and then the sawzall, or the reciprocating saw, died. All right, we got a dead reciprocating saw, so what do we do about it? Well, you can toss it out, go buy a new one. That's one option. That's fine, if that's what you want to do. For me, I like to try to fix stuff first, and not everything is fixable, or repairable, we should say. So what I just want to test to make sure that I am correct that it's dead, and I already know that, but I'm going to test it anyway. So I've got a known good power supply. I know this is good. So I plugged in the saw, and there's nothing in it at all. So what would be the next step, I guess? We have to diagnose the issue. So I'm going to unplug it from the power. I don't need the power on to do this test. So now I want to test with my multimeter, which I have right here, and I have it set on continuity and for testing diodes. Actually, these glasses aren't on my head for protection, they're just so I can see. So yeah, it's set on diode and continuity. So what we're going to do, we'll turn it on, and with the continuity, with the alarm, you should get the beeping sound, right? So what we're going to do, we're basically testing the power to the switch, the continuity of the cable that goes through the switch. So right there, so I've just crossed it over. There's no power on this, so you can touch all this stuff as you normally would. And now I push the button, push the trigger, nothing still. So there's a break in the system there somewhere. So we can take the brushes out, and I want to anyway, just to show you that what kind of condition they're in, and we'll clean this up. But I'm thinking it's either the issue, this is my thoughts on this before we go too far with this, it's in the plug here, because this plug right here, as you can see, has been used and abused over the years, or it could be in the switch itself. But we can test that as we go. So we'll test it as we get up the line. So I'll end up taking the brushes out first, these little covers, and I'll take the handle off, and that'll give me access to the switch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the camera over and point down on here, and then you won't have to look at my ugly face anymore. And then I can put my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing. And we'll see if we can find out what's wrong with this. And it may be beat. It may be completely burnt up. And if it is, we go buy a new one. If it's not, maybe we'll go fix it. Save myself $100 for now. But again, this thing doesn't owe me anything, so if I have to buy a new one, it's not going to hurt my feelings too much. All right, so let me get you in closer, and let's have a look at this. First thing I did, I took the blade off. We don't need the blade on for this job. And I have the cord strung out. So I'm going to pull the covers off of the brushes, the brush area. Right here, there's one cover, set them aside. And let's go after this one here. Come off pretty easy. Set that aside. So there's the brushes in here, and so there's little retainers that hold them in place, if you can see them. Little retainer right there. So I want to check the brushes. Actually, I'm going to wait for a minute, because I want to take the handle off, because I can get at that spring better, and the brush electrical's better with the handle off. So let's pull the handle off. It's going to have to come off anyway, regardless, so. Yeah, this has been a good saw, I have to say. I put a lot of time in with this guy. All right, so there's the screws out. Let's just dump them out here. There we go. The 2 screws for the handle. That's all that's in it. That's all it takes. And there we go. There's one side. Now that I've got the handle off, I'm going to check the condition of the wires just to make sure that nothing got cut or burnt off or anything like that. And they look good. So now that we know that the wires are good, we're going to check the continuity of these this cable here. So right up to the switch. So I have to expose those wires so I can check the continuity. So let's pull the switch out. Set that aside. The switch is held in with 1 screw. And that's it right there. So you've got line and load, so you got common and hot on these things. All right, now that we have the switch out so we can actually look at it some, and there's really no test ports on this switch, so I'm going to have to find a spot that I can test the continuity of the main power cable. Cleaned up some. Now I could try taking it apart, but why don't I just check to see that there's power getting to these right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a jumper and I'm going to jumper these over, and then I'm going to go in here with my multimeter and then take that off there, so now I have room. And then I'll test at this point right here. You can see that because the light's in the wrong spot. So there's a place I can put the tester there and the tester there, just to check for continuity. So let me grab a testing lead, or a jumper cable rather. I've got my jumper, just the alligator clips. Actually, I'm going to hook it right on here, and I'm going to jumper them over like so. And now we're just testing the switch in the circuit now. Get them in there so it stays. There's no power on this. This is all done without being powered, so you don't plug it in. And now we're going to test the continuity again from between here and these 2 points right here. So I'm going to put my multimeter leads on here, and I'm going to pull the switch on. And if there's any continuity, it should turn the buzzer on. So there you go. So we know the switch is good. Just like that. So I know that when it's plugged in, I have power right to those 2 points. Now, I'm just going to try to test it. I wish I had my clips on there so I could hang on to it easier, because this is on the opposite side. So now I'm testing the continuity between the brush. So we don't need this on here anymore. Let's get rid of this. Let's check on each brush, we'll check the continuity between where the power for this brush goes into the motor. So I'm getting no readings, but I am there because that's the brush and the brush holder over to where the brush pigtail is. But there's nothing between where the power comes in that we've already checked that's good and the brush. I hope this is making sense, because sometimes I don't explain stuff very well. So I'll go to the other side and see if it's the same. There's nothing. But the brush has continuity between the brush holder, see, and the brush electrical prong. So let's go back a little bit further. So yeah, so I don't have any continuity there either. So I'm gonna take this out and clean it some and see what's going on. Why is that not providing power? The brushes look to be good in this one. But let's take a brush out and have a look. Let's take a brush out just to be sure. So we'll pull it back like this. Pull back that little retainer. Hold it back with your finger or whatever, and then pull the brush up just to get the spring out of the way. You can see that or not. So that brush is in good shape. Lots left to it. It's not burnt, not charred up or anything. Put it back in. Let's do the other side. Same deal. Just pull that back out of the way. Don't let it fall inside. If you let it fall inside, it's going to be very hard to get back out again. So just pull it up like that. Work the brush out slowly. Don't pound and reef on them. Oh, don't let that fall. All right, get that brush back up in there. So I don't want that spring to get out of my hands. All right, there we go. I need two. All right, get a hold of that. And that brush has got a little dirt on it from bringing it out, but it's not charred up. It's not beat up any. So I'll put that back in. So the brushes aren't the problem. And like I showed you, the continuity for the brush itself back to where it connects is good. So that's good. And the continuity on the brush leads are good. Yep, they're good. We know the switch is good. We know the brushes are good. So why is the power not getting from here to there? That's what we need to find out. Now the idea here is we're trying to find a cause for this. Why is this not working? If we don't find a cause, it's pretty hard to make a fix. All right, well, we've established we have continuity through the cable. We have continuity from where the brush plugs into the brush holder. That works all well, both sides. So now there has to be an issue. Shut off that multimeter. There has to be an issue with power getting from here to the brush. Now we'll try it again, the continuity between the two, because in theory there should be continuity between the brushes and that. So something's gone awry there. Well, let's pull this off and see if there's any indication of what might happen inside. We can get rid of this. And it might have burnt up in there. So I'm just going to mark this one and mark this one. Now I know that that lead came from that side. Good. All right, so now I can pull the leads off. I may end up taking this whole thing apart. So this is all good. So we don't need this right now. We'll set it aside. And that leaves us the body of this rig. Now I can't really see anything in there. I can't tell whether the armature's burnt up or anything like that. So I may have to take all this off, pull this sleeve off, and try to get this motor apart. I don't even see how it comes apart. It's a mystery machine. Took me a minute to figure out what I needed to do here. So I get it up where you can see it. I had to take the whole end off. There's a pin. And you gotta remember how this goes on because it centers through the gap. So there's a way it goes back on, and you can easily check that before you put the pin in. But there's a little pin that allows this to float on when it's in, like this way, up and down. But anyway, the pin has to come out. I just tapped it out with a small punch, side to side. And that leaves you the bare shaft. That's where your blade would go in, right there. That would be retained by that. And then this boot comes off. I've never had one of these apart before, so it took me a minute to figure it all out. So you can see in here, we've got a lot of grease coming out of our gearbox. So she's been worked hard, but it's free. It still works. But by taking that cover off, it exposes a set of screws out here. So you can pull that motor apart. So I'll see if I can get these apart and still show you what's going on. There we go. They aren't in there by much. Like this. We'll probably take this gasket off too. It doesn't need to be in your way. In my way, I should say. You're not doing it, I am. So pull the gasket off side to side. You'll remember we have to put it back on. Seems like a lot of work just to get into there, but this is what it has to be. So once we do this, those brushes, when I pull this motor out, those brushes will pop down. So I'll have to pull them out too. As a matter of fact, I should do it right now before we get this too far gone. So I'll pull the brush lead off, like so. We'll get the brushes out of the way, and then we don't have to worry about damaging them. There we go. And I'll pull this back up again, like so, and get this brush up there. So there's one brush, we'll take it off. And I'll let the brush retainer fall back into there. I'm going to put a yellow dot on that so that brush is in the right spot again. If I can find out my... There you go. I just had it and I lost it. So this will be the yellow dot, so that's the side that has the yellow. Let's pull the other brush out. Disconnect it. There it is. Out of the way. Brush out. Put the retainer back in the slot so it doesn't spin. Because if you don't, this coiled spring will flip around and it'll be hard to get it back over there. Probably won't be so bad now that we're taking everything apart. So let's continue taking the motor apart. Better check to make sure I'm recording, and I am. Sometimes I forget to turn it back on. Now what I'm going to do, before we go too far with this, try to remember how it all goes together. So I'm going to put a dot on here and a dot on the case, so I know that's the side it goes back on. Doesn't hurt to mark them. Maybe it doesn't do any gain, but it's a big gain if you lose orientation when you're putting it back together. So we have that marked, so we know it comes out this way. Okay, well that's the head drive. Again, oh, there's a bushing fell off too, or a little shim. A lot of this stuff needs to be cleaned up. It's really dirty. And there's a little shim that fell off this, right here. And that had a felt in there for lubrication. We'll call it like that for now. So now we're down to the motor. The motor spins freely. No issues there with it's quiet, the bearing seems to be good. It's very dirty in here. And this is the bearing, where the bearing sits in. Remember to put that shim back on when the time comes. So there's where the bearing goes. It doesn't look like it's spun in there or anything. Yep, set that aside again. Yeah, the bearing is free. All right, now let's see if we can get the motor out of this thing. I might have to take that bearing off. All right, I'm going to pull these, there's another set of screws back here. Might be able to pull all this right out together. We're stripping her down now. So a lot of times that's what you have to do. And these rigs. All right, we'll just skip ahead here on this one. All right, so that's for the brush. Those two screws, they hold the brush retainers in. So you can see now you can move them back and forth. I'm still not able to get the motor out. So I'm gonna get my lock ring pliers. If I get some, there's a lock ring on the bearing, holding the bearing on. It's like a, if I can get it off with this or not. Very small. I don't think that should have to come off, really. There we go. There we go. So a little pry up, I left the bearing on. So there's the whole thing. The armature's out. It's very dirty in here. Huh. All right. Set that aside. She needs a good cleaning. And now, I'm not sure if I can split this case apart. So I'm trying to get at the brush holder. That's what I'm trying to get at here. There we go. So there's the armature support. Or it's actually more of a dust guard than anything. And now all this comes right out. You got an empty case. I'm going to clean all that up before I put it back together. So now we're into something. I'm going to get some cleaner and I clean all this off. So be right back. I'm going to grab some cleaner. So what I've done, I've taken it all apart. As you can see, I've cleaned it reasonably well with some brake cleaner. But what's going on now, we're going to check them again here in front of you, just to be sure. Just want to get in there and clean this out. There. Get all this garbage out of there. She's really filthy. I'm almost a brake cleaner. All right. So what we're going to do, put my, first thing I'm going to do is put my yellow dot back on because I almost lost it there. That's the second time I almost lost that. All right, so we've got the field windings. So this is one field winding here and one field winding here, and they start and terminate there. We're going to check on continuity if the field windings are any good. So we know we have continuity on their leads. We'll put one there. And on this side here, I have no continuity in the field windings. It's an open circuit. So there's something wrong in the field windings. If I go to this side and do it, we have a closed circuit. So the continuous, the continuity in that field is good. Now we'll check against ground. Nothing's grounded. This one here is no continuity, but it's not showing grounded. Now I'll see if it's showing grounded from this side. No, it's not grounded to the field, it's not grounded out, but there's an issue. So I don't know what the issue is, because, and this is something I didn't notice when we were testing before, that this lead provides power to this brush. And I was doing it backwards. So let's just do it right now this time. So this power lead provides power for this brush. So there's nothing there on that one. So if I go here, stick it in there, see there's continuity. So one side of this, for one side of this motor, there's an issue in the field. So I'm going to pull this little tab off to see if there's any. It's not grounding out, so it's like it lost the connection altogether. You get back in the. So I don't know why that is. Nope, don't know why. So with that information, tells me this field's gone, and most likely this reciprocating saw is no longer serviceable, unless I can find something close at hand that I can easily see. Now I'm not a motor winder, and I'm not going to tackle that. I'd rather go buy a new one for that. Something has shorted out in this rig. It's funny, there's no smell while I've been washing it down. It's like there's no sign of burning or anything, but the lack of continuity between them in this field tells me there's definitely something wrong. All right, so I found something. Now, it doesn't help this particular reciprocating saw because it's done. As far as I'm concerned, this saw is done. But I'll show you what I found. Now, I'm going to try to get up close so you can see it. So if you take the little needle nose pliers and gently grab these leads right here. See how this one, I'll show you. Hopefully you can see that. There's not much light. All right, let's see if we can get it so you can see it. I can pull that wire in and out. So that wire is most likely burnt off inside the field there somewhere, because the rest of them are good and solid, and that shouldn't have that much play in it. Even if it's a little bit loose, it shouldn't be that much. So it looks to me like, I might be able to see it even better there, but it's a light on, that this set of fields has had the biscuit. Look. So since I'm going to say it is, I can pull that up, and there it is right there. Look. Burnt off. Focus. So that's the end of this reciprocating saw. It burnt that copper wire off inside. Well, that's it. So that's the last chance I was going to give this old reciprocating saw, and it failed. Well, you know, it could have been as simple as a connection in here or somewhere in there. Could have been that simple. And when you get down to doing the fields, I know there's guys out there that could rewind that and that would work perfect probably. But I'm not one of those guys. I'll go this far with it, but that's it. So anyway, this isn't even worth putting back together. This is garbage now. Recycle, not garbage. It'll go to recycle. And now that it's all apart, it's easy to separate out the pieces. And that's it. Looks like I'm getting a new reciprocating saw to finish the Thunderbird with. That's the best we can do with it. Or the best I can do with it. Alright, well that's it. Thanks a lot for watching. And like and subscribe. And we'll catch you in the next one.